A growing number of Catholics believe the Church is facing a much deeper problem than simply disagreements with the Society of St. Pius X. According to this view, the real crisis is not about one traditionalist group. It is about trust. More specifically, trust in church leadership. The argument begins with a simple but serious idea. Power always needs limits. In modern governments, power is balanced through laws, constitutions, elections, and separate institutions. But inside the Catholic Church, the Pope holds extremely broad authority. Church law describes the Pope as possessing supreme and universal power over the Church. For centuries, Catholics accepted this system because they believed the Pope was always bound by something higher: sacred scripture and sacred tradition. In other words, the Pope could govern freely, but never against the faith handed down through history. According to critics, that trust has been badly damaged in recent years. They point to several controversial actions during the pontificate of Francis. One major example is Amoris Laetitia, the document that opened the door for divorced and civilly remarried Catholics to receive communion in certain cases. Critics argue this weakened the Church's historic teaching on marriage and adultery. Another controversy was Fiducia Supplicans, the Vatican document allowing non-liturgical blessings for couples in irregular situations, including same-sex couples. Traditional Catholics say this created confusion about Catholic teaching on sexuality and marriage. Other events also increased tensions. Critics mentioned the Pachamama ceremony during the 2019 Amazon Synod, which many conservatives viewed as inappropriate or even idolatrous. They also point to the Abu Dhabi Declaration on Human Fraternity, arguing it blurred the uniqueness of Christianity. At the same time, many traditional Catholics believe church authorities have ignored serious liturgical abuses in ordinary parishes while aggressively restricting the traditional Latin Mass. For example, Catholics attached to the Old Mass often face limitations, restrictions, or removal from parish churches. Meanwhile, progressive movements like Germany's Synodal Path continue openly discussing issues like same-sex blessings and women's roles in the church with little direct punishment from Rome. This contrast has created a growing sense of double standards. Critics ask why traditional Catholics face strong discipline while more progressive groups seem tolerated despite challenging church teaching more openly. That frustration helps explain why many Catholics sympathize with the SSPX today, even if they do not fully agree with everything the society does. The planned bishop consecrations by the SSPX are therefore seen by supporters not simply as rebellion, but as a response to what they view as a doctrinal crisis inside the Church. Critics of Rome argue the society no longer trusts Vatican leadership to protect Catholic tradition consistently. And according to this perspective, threatening excommunication will not solve that deeper problem. Why? Because excommunication addresses the symptom, not the disease. The real issue, they argue, is the growing belief that church doctrine itself is no longer functioning as the clear limit on authority. If Catholics begin to feel that doctrine changes depending on politics, pastoral priorities, or personal interpretation, confidence in church leadership naturally weakens. This is why some conservatives believe the Church's crisis cannot be solved only through punishments or legal actions. Instead, they argue the Church must restore clarity and consistency in doctrine. Without that, mistrust will continue growing. It argues the society is not the root cause of division in the Church. Rather, it is a symptom of a larger crisis already spreading throughout Catholicism. According to this argument, the SSPX grew because many Catholics felt spiritually homeless inside the modern Church. And until the underlying doctrinal tensions are addressed, divisions will likely continue, with or without excommunications. At the center of this entire debate is one very important question: what ultimately limits authority inside the Catholic Church? For traditional Catholics, the answer is clear. Not politics, not popularity, not modern culture, but fidelity to Scripture, tradition, and the historic Catholic faith. And they believe trust inside the Church can only be restored if that foundation becomes clear again.